What's going on, Saints fans? I believe Mickey Loomis and the black and gold have pulled off highway robbery. And I'm going to explain my thoughts throughout the course of this video because personally, I think the Saints have made some really, really good moves so far. And I believe that the moves that they made have been very underrated. And I can understand why a lot of y'all believe this season is going to be a lot of doom and gloom. But to be totally honest, I have a few reasons why I think the Saints season actually might go a lot better than we all anticipate. So let's just kind of recap what we're going to talk about here. The offseason so far, it's consisted of a new coaching staff. The Saints have made a trade, and on top of that, they've been active in free agency. Obviously, the draft has yet to happen, and things can still go down for the New Orleans Saints. But for today's video, we're going to dive into these three topics and why I think the Saints pulled off highway robbery. But really quick, today's show would not be made possible if it weren't for our awesome friends over at Factor Meals. I absolutely love Factor, and I can tell you right now that truffle butter filet mignon, it is chef's kiss. So dang good. Ready to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well so easy. They're dietitian approved and they're ready to eat in just a couple of minutes so you can fuel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you. Get started today at factormeals.com/SaintsChat50 off and use code SaintsChat50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared, perfect for any active, busy lifestyle. And that's why I love Factor, because rather than having to drive through a McDonald's or go get some sort of fast food that I know isn't healthy, I'm able to eat a nutritious and delicious meal in just a few minutes. Factor can help you feel your best all day long with wholesome smoothies, breakfasts, grab-and-go snacks, and even more add-ons. So eat smart with Factor. Get started today at factormeals.com/SaintsChat50 off and use that code SaintsChat50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. All that information is in the comments and description of this video. Shout out to Factor. Thank you guys for sponsoring, and thank you for keeping my belly full. So let's first start off with the new coaching staff, because obviously this is an entirely different crew than what we first saw when the Saints ended the season last year. And I can tell you right now, I'm a big fan of what the Saints have done in terms of the coaching roster. Kellen Moore, Doug Nussmeier, Brandon Staley, and Phil Galiano are your main coaches. Now, obviously, Galiano, he is a promotion. He was under Darren Rizzi, and he stuck around, and I think that is an excellent decision. He has definitely earned that spot. And TJ Paganetti, he came over and joined the New Orleans Saints with Kellen Moore. Keith Williams, one of the top, if not the top wide receiver coach across the National Football League and arguably in all of football. And that's not an opinion. That is straight from multiple NFL players, multiple coaches, and multiple people around the league. Brendan Nugent, he's an offensive line coach. Jahri Evans, he is sticking around. He's the assistant offensive line coach. I think that's an excellent decision to keep him around. And Scott Tolzien and Bo Davis round out some more hires. I think the Scott Tolzien hire is really underrated, and that Bo Davis hire could really benefit the entire defensive line. And in my personal opinion, I believe the coaching staff alone should lead to improvement for this New Orleans Saints team. Last year's coaching staff, it was terrible. I mean, before we even got to week 10, the coaching staff was already put into shreds because the head coach got fired. And the New Orleans Saints are not a team that operates by firing head coaches in the middle of the season. So when you have a new regime with a Super Bowl winning coach, with guys who are young, guys who are hungry, I think it's a really good situation because a lot of these coaches also have a lot to prove. It's so much better than the previous regime that I firmly believe, just based on the coaching staff alone, we should see more wins than we did last year. So I want to get down in the comment section. I want to hear from you, Who Dat Nation. What's your Saints record prediction? I don't know what mine is, to be totally honest. So I'm going to put you on the spot. I know it's unfair for me to ask, but get down in the comment section. If you know ball, I want to hear from you. This will be the pinned comment. So if YouTube throws you an ad break, take advantage, scroll down, share your thoughts, and by the time you're done, the video will be playing once again. So let's now take a look at the trade side of things. Now, when it comes to the trades, the New Orleans Saints have not traded anybody away, but they did bring in defensive tackle Davon Godchaux. And I think that is an excellent move that is extremely underrated. And I also will say this, I think that this team is really needing a run stopper, and Devon Godshaw is exactly that. You actually got him for a 7th-round pick next year, so you don't even lose any draft capital this year. And on top of that, not only do you get one of the best run stoppers in the league, you also get a guy who fits a massive position in need, and it's a homecoming for Devon Godshaw, which is a pretty cool storyline. He's excited to be in New Orleans. He's talked about he's not chasing stats, he's not chasing stuff. He just wants to help this team win, and I think that is an excellent mindset. Worth noting, in 2024, he was 9th in run stops according to Pro Football Focus with 35 stops. In case you don't know what that is, a run stop is when a defender makes a tackle that signifies the defense won the snap. So on first down, if the offense gets 45% of the way to a first down or less, that's a stop. Second down, it's 60% or less. That's a stop. Third or fourth down, it's whether or not the offense gets a touchdown or a first down. That is also a considered stop. So Devon Godshaw, number 9 across the league in run stops, a really, really talented run stopper. And to New Orleans Saints, that is exactly what they were missing. They were terrible against the run last year. And to be totally honest, I'm just going to say this. I know that there was a lot of chatter about trade away Chris Olave, trade Taysom Hill, Alvin Kamara, Tyrann Mathieu, Cam Jordan. I know that those were all topics of discussion, but I personally love the fact that the Saints didn't trade anyone away. I know that it's upsetting to some people. I know that financially, maybe you wanted to go a different route, but I think that the Saints need to establish a culture, and having some of these players around does that. So when you have players like Tyrann Mathieu, and you have players like Cam Jordan who mean a lot to this city and mean a lot to this fan base and this franchise, it only helps establish a culture for a team that, quite frankly, does not have an identity. And that's the biggest thing Kellen Moore needs to do this year in year 1 is start establishing a culture and an identity. I love that the team did not move off of any of their veterans. I love that they kept around a lot of their key players. And I think that the Saints weren't really going to get the haul you wanted in terms of trade compensation that you were desiring. So, I'm okay with keeping these guys around for another season to help Kellen Moore establish the culture moving forward. Now, I want to ask you this. Who's a player that you're willing to trade away? I'm genuinely curious here because I firmly believe the Saints should not trade away Chris Olave. They should not get rid of Taysom Hill. Alvin Kamara is untouchable in my opinion, but maybe you disagree with me. Maybe you think it's Derek Carr. I want to hear from you down below. Alrighty, to round things out, let's talk free agency. And, I just want to say with the free agency spending here, it feels like they were actually being smart spenders. Like, I don't think the Saints have done a bad job in free agency. Although they haven't had a ton of big names signed, they've added talent to the roster without having to break the bank entirely, and they actually still have about $28 to $30-ish million of cap space to still spend. So they could let that roll over next year or use it this year. And, a lot of notable moves have happened so far. Chase Young, Juwan Johnson, those two guys were brought back. Tyrann Mathieu and Cameron Jordan, they returned on reworked deals as well. Justin Reed, Isaac Yiadom, and Brandon Cooks, those were some external additions. I love bringing back Isaac Yiadom. It's a cheap contract with very, very low risk, high reward possibilities. Justin Reed, an excellent signing. A lot of people, and a lot of ESPN and NFL experts have been saying this is a terrible move. Like, he's a good player, but why are you spending? Well, because the Saints are operating to win right now, and the Saints are in the worst division of football, and Justin Reed gives you a chance to help win that division and get back to the postseason. Brandon Cooks, obviously, he was brought back to the New Orleans Saints. The Saints drafted him a handful of years ago, and he is now back into black and gold, rocking number 10 again, by the way. But in case you didn't know this, a lot of people were really upset with the Juwan Johnson and Chase Young contracts, but I'm actually here to tell you this was cap chess while other teams are playing cap checkers. The Saints saved money by re-signing and bringing back Juwan Johnson and Chase Young individually as well as together. So when you were looking at the contracts going into the season, they had some void years on their contract. The Saints would have had to pay that out, but they didn't have to actually pay them as much by bringing them back under contract. So, that's something worth noting. In case you didn't know that, you don't agree with it, well, I'm here to tell you actually saved money by bringing them back on a contract. And, also, just big-time shout-out. We got to address some Saints legends here. We have to address the fact that these guys are absolute, not just city, not just state, not just team legends. They are the definition of legends. Cameron Jordan and Tyrann Mathieu, two very highly touted players, two guys that have had illustrious NFL careers, that have had a lot of great moments. But to be totally honest, they're on the back end of their career. They decided to come back on reworked contracts that helped the Saints a lot in clearing up cap space. So, I mean, we've talked about some of the moves that they made. Let's just look at some of the cap hits for these players. So Cameron Jordan, it's a $9.76 million cap hit. Tyrann Mathieu, it was over $20 million, by the way. Tyrann Mathieu drops his down to just over $6 million. Obviously, by the way, the cap hits aren't the total money they are owed. They can obviously make more money through incentives and through playing time and through production and stuff like that. But this is just the base cap hits, or not the base salary, but the cap hits for these guys, the base salary plus the roster bonus. Davon Godchaux, less than $2 million this year. Juwan Johnson, $5 million. Jace Young, less than $7 million. Justin Reed is making less than $4 million this year, ladies and gentlemen. Isaac Yiadom is making less than $2 million. And Brandon Cooks, he signed a 2-year, $13 million contract. It was $6.5 million annually. He's only making $3.15 this year. So, I just keep going back to this. Remember when the Saints were way the hell over the cap? They were $90 million over the cap. And everybody said the only way to cap compliance is trading everything away, blowing everything up, getting rid of all the contracts. Really? Should we just run it back this entire video? Do you want to have a conversation about all of the free agency moves that we've talked about recently? The Saints have money to spend still. They can actively pursue free agents. They can be big spenders on free agents. They also can afford to make a trade. They can afford to make some sort of big splashy move still. So I don't want to hear that the New Orleans Saints are in this cap hell, this cap nonsense, when every single year they find a way to dig themselves out of it. And I'll also sit here and tell you this. This is my final take on this, and I'm not going to talk about it again for a little bit. Winning fixes everything. The Saints go back to winning. You're not going to have anything to say about the salary cap. I'm not going to have anything to say about the salary cap. All of these NFL analysts who've been talking mad shit about the Saints and how they spend their money, they are all going to shut their damn mouths, and they're all going to tuck their tail between their legs and say, yeah, the Saints were going to be great this whole time. Nope, keep that energy, stay on that side of the coin here. The Saints operate just fine. The only problem is that they're not winning football games, and that is a big problem. But if we can get back to winning, salary cap is not an issue. So I want you to grade Saints free agency for me. I got a couple final thoughts that we'll get to just to kind of round things out, but get down in the comments, A, B, or C, D, or F. I'm going to go with the B. I don't think it's not an A, but it's definitely not a C. I got to go with a B here. So, one thing that you should expect from the New Orleans Saints this year is you should expect them to play with much more tempo. Expect a high-powered, high-paced offense with a lot of physicality. And this team's also going to be smarter. They're going to cater to the strengths of the players on the roster. They're going to cater to the play styles of these guys on the roster. And Kellen Moore, that is the big thing that's been a big selling point for him, is that he knows how to adapt to the skill sets on the roster. So if you need a reason to be a little bit more optimistic, expect some good things, because I think that we should be seeing some good things from the Saints. And just final thoughts to round it out. The Saints have made some good moves. I disagree with everyone who says this offseason has been terrible. There's still a lot of time to make some mistakes. Don't get it twisted. The draft is a big opportunity for the Saints to either knock it out of the park or completely revert and fall back into a hole. I love what they've done so far, though. I think the coaching staff is much better. I think the free agency period has been very underrated. They made a great trade in bringing in Davon Godchaux. And sometimes the best moves that you make are the ones you don't, whether it's a trade or a free agency move. So, I think that all things considered, what they had to work with, this was a really good offseason so far, and I'm excited for this year. Now, Saints fans, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. A little bit longer content, not really that much longer, but just a few minutes longer. So I hope you guys liked what we discussed. If you disagree, flame me in the comments. If you agree, let me know what. I'm Trace Girouard. My name is Trizzy Trace. Thank you guys so much for watching. Y'all stay golden, and we'll see you next time.